You know, from a parent's perspective, in all honesty, when we found out how big of a problem that we really had, there were so many challenges. And the biggest one is we wanted, Chantel to be at home, but we didn't want the problems at home.
You know, I've been through multiple treatment centers, and I was just struggling to stay sober.
It was so stressful not knowing where she was and what she was doing, and eventually she obviously hit bottom. She was actually in jail.
When the brain is affected by mind-altering chemicals, it loses its ability to say no to itself. So people go against their values and their morals. And if I go against my values and my morals, I start feeling shame.
I didn't think that I would be able to maintain long-term sobriety. I just felt hopeless.
I can remember my first night staying up in my room, and I had a new white bedspread, and I was just set out in the corner, and I was able to look out my window, and I just remember feeling really good, really good. It was the first time that I felt like I was going to be okay.
You know, I really think that sober living is the critical component of substance abuse treatment, because anybody can stay sober in an artificial environment. But when you go out into the real world and you have to experience real life and triggers and all of the things that made you abuse mind-altering substances in the first place, that's what's hard.
For me, sober living is the trend of the future for treatment of addiction, because it is that midpoint. It's where I'm really in the world and I'm learning to be in the world and try to be in the world clean and sober, but I also still have the support and the structure at night, in the evening, when I come home and throughout the day, that allows me to deal with the stress and continue to not use.
When I see people in my office after a relapse and we talk and we figure out why they relapsed, the missing component is almost always the social piece.
Project Recovery was different for me because it gave me the opportunity to be involved in the community. It wasn't a lockdown facility. You know, I had the ability to go out and get a job and be active in the community.
Project Recovery really is all about building a strong, sober social support system and about living with a group of peers that are all dedicated and working towards a common goal: sustainable sobriety.
It gave me the opportunity to be of service and to be held accountable for my actions.
You know, the reality is, if you're going to stay off of drugs and alcohol, you have to find a way to live a life worth living. You have to enjoy your life. And Project Recovery helps to provide that social network so that you can start to live a life worth living and you can start to enjoy life. You know, people need medical stabilization in order to get sober, but they must learn to live the best version of themselves if they're going to stay sober.
You know, day by day, we really did notice a change and an improvement. You know, she became much better at communicating, accepting responsibility, and really wanting to do better.
You know, whether people come to us from residential treatment, outpatient treatment, or following a relapse or an intervention, they leave us really having crossed the bridge. And that really is that critical transition between directed sobriety and self-directed living.
You know, I really think that Project Recovery saved my life.
The tools that I've learned at Project Recovery have enabled me to live a happy and peace-filled life.
Sober living's changed my life by giving me my life back.
Now, I have a life that is totally amazing. I don't use drugs or alcohol, but most importantly, I have a life worth living.